Working for Diddy for 6 years trained me to have to be perfect.
Working for Diddy?
Absolutely.
I love Diddy.
Absolutely.
I love Diddy. Love Diddy. You know, he's a good friend of mine. He's a good guy.
He expects.
Is he a good guy?
I don't want to answer that
Oh,
question.
wow. I
don't
think
know.
he's a good guy. I'm going to stick up for him.
I'm back in my
Stay
bag.
in your bed. Stay in
Like
your
you
bed.
you know you could fall out your bag, but you could get back in it though too.
What if the next target isn't random? What if the next one already knows too much? 50 Cent's been calling him out for years, but when Diddy walks free, will that laugh turn into a threat? Cat Williams exposed the entire industry. He said the truth would come at a price. Is that price coming now? Gene Deal was inside Diddy's world. Now he says he's next. But will they come for him before he talks again? And Kid Cudi, his story got buried? But he's been trying to tell us. Is anyone listening now? If Diddy walks free, who's his first target? Puff Daddy might walk free. But if that happens, someone's in serious danger. Because let's be honest, you don't go against a man like Diddy and walk away untouched. He's not just rich, he's protected. Protected by silence, protected by power, protected by people who should have stopped him long ago. So when the walls started to close in, when the lawsuits piled up, when the FBI raided his homes, that looked like the end, but it wasn't. In just a few months, multiple lawsuits vanished. The headlines got quieter, celebrities stopped talking, and now he might walk. But if he does, what happens to the people who spoke out? Cassie, Lil Rod, former employees, whistleblowers, victims. They stood up, they told the truth, and they shook the industry to its core. Now they wait, not for justice, for retaliation. Now listen to Gene Deal, Diddy's former head of security.
They want the prosecution to hurry up to bring Gina in so Gina could paint the picture that like everything was consenting because she's been paid off.
And this is the one that disappeared, right?
Yeah, this is the one who disappeared. This is the one who, they could get her. There's nowhere she could go that the federal government, if they want you, that you can't be gotten. You understand what I'm saying? If the federal government wants you that bad, you'll be gotten, bro. She took the $2 million payment from Diddy and them.
They know she's a hostile witness. Gina Hine went missing after getting paid off. She took the $2 million payment from Diddy, a former girlfriend paying the price in silence, literally disappearing after testifying. If Diddy walks out, that's not just rumor, that's a warning. Because if Diddy gets out, he won't be looking to forgive. He'll be looking to punish. Before we go any deeper, do you think Diddy's planning revenge if he walks? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're watching everything, and we'll show you what the media won't. Diddy isn't just fighting for his freedom, he's being shielded. Because the question no one's asking is, who's actually protecting him? Why did multiple lawsuits disappear in the same week? Why did the media coverage suddenly fade out? Why are celebrities who once supported victims now eerily quiet? It's almost like Diddy's not on his own. It's like someone or something is holding the door open behind the scenes. This goes beyond lawyers. This smells like political protection, corporate silence, and maybe federal hesitation. Diddy's been tied to billionaires, government donors, and even alleged CIA assets. That's not a conspiracy. That's his actual social circle. People who attended his parties weren't just rappers and influencers. We're talking execs, investors, political figures, people who have something to lose if Diddy goes down. Because if Diddy talks, he doesn't go down alone. According to insiders, those infamous freak-off parties were more than just excess. They were leverage. People got filmed, people got compromised, and now they'll protect Diddy to protect themselves. Gene Deal, Diddy's former head of security, said it plainly. Those parties were set up so people could be exposed, and once they were, they couldn't say nothing. That's not entertainment, that's insurance, and it explains everything. Why cases vanish? Why the FBI raids didn't lead to charges? Why Cassie's silence was bought? And why Lil Rod is probably looking over his shoulder right now. If Diddy is holding secrets for the elite, he's not just being protected, he's being preserved, and that changes everything. If you're watching this and thinking there's no way this goes that deep, ask yourself why these stories keep disappearing. Ask yourself why people keep going quiet, and ask yourself who else was in those rooms. Keep watching because we're just getting started. Cassie, Lil Rod, Gene Deal, and more. These weren't anonymous names. These were people close to Diddy, people who knew the truth and chose to speak anyway. And now, every single one of them is exposed. Cassie was the first domino. When she filed her lawsuit, it wasn't just about abuse, it was about control, coercion, trafficking, and what shocked the industry most, the lawsuit was settled within 24 hours. 24 hours. Ask yourself, who settles that fast, and why? Gene Deal says it was fear. Fear that more victims would follow Cassie's lead. Fear that depositions would go public. Fear that too many powerful names would be mentioned, because Cassie's case was just the surface. The blueprint. Then came Lil Rod. He wasn't just a producer. He was inside Diddy's house, his studio, his daily routines. He claimed sex trafficking, intimidation, and drug use, all tied directly to Diddy's lifestyle. And he named names. Not just Diddy, other celebrities, big ones. And what happened next? Media backlash, discredit campaigns, silence. Lil Rod's lawyers say they've received threats. Private investigators have followed witnesses. Some have gone dark. Others withdrew testimony. Gene Deal confirmed this too. He said, "Once you go against Puff, your life ain't the same. People get scared, people disappear, and now all eyes are on these witnesses. Because if Diddy walks free, he walks out angry, embarrassed, exposed, and the first people in his line of fire are the ones who exposed him." And let's be real, if someone tried to take down a man with this much reach, do you really think they sleep peacefully at night? They stood up anyway. They told the truth anyway. And if you're watching this right now, think about how rare that is in this industry. Most people stay quiet to survive. These people spoke up, knowing what could come next. And the question is, will they survive what comes after? This isn't just about Diddy's freedom. It's about everything he built and everything he's afraid to lose. Because if this case truly blows open, we're not just talking about jail time. We're talking about a complete dismantling of a legacy. Bad Boy Records, Sean John, Revolt TV, the liquor brands, the publishing empire, the deals with corporations like Ciroc, Apple, and Warner. It all hangs by a thread, and that thread is silence. That's why people say Diddy would rather scorch the earth than go down quietly. Because if he falls, he knows who else falls with him. If those witnesses keep talking, if new victims come forward, if more evidence leaks, he loses the protection. He loses the deals, he loses the illusion of control. And now, we've seen just how desperate his legal team is to keep that control. On July 2nd, after a federal jury found Diddy guilty on 2 counts of transporting women for prostitution, his attorney, Mark Agnifilo, made a bold request in court: immediate release on bond that very same day, so Diddy could go home to Florida while awaiting sentencing. The judge, stunned, asked, "Is your proposal that Mr. Combs leave the courtroom and walk outside?" Agnifilo replied, "That is my proposal. Let that sink in." Facing 10 years per count and fresh off a guilty verdict, his team wanted him walking free hours later. That's not legal defense. That's panic, because they know what's coming. He's already been locked up since September 2024, but this was different. This wasn't a raid. This was a conviction. And still, they're trying to fast-track his release, even after 34 witnesses testified, including Kid Cudi, Don, Richard, Cassie, and a protected witness called Jane. They didn't just tell stories. They described events known inside the industry as freak-offs and hotel nights. Cassie didn't just talk about manipulation. She accused him of rape. That's the kind of testimony that doesn't go away, even if the headlines do. Gene Deal said it clearly: Diddy ain't worried about the charges. He's worried about the exposure. Because courtrooms don't just deal out prison time. They deal out documents, testimonies, depositions, names. And Diddy's world can't survive that level of transparency. And let's not forget, the more this case stretches out, the more time journalists have to dig, the more time insiders have to flip, the more pressure his circle feels. So what does Diddy do? He fights dirty. He buys silence. He makes examples. He reminds people that going against him has consequences. That's not just damage control. That's fear-based control. And if this man is still being protected by powerful names, then exposing him means exposing them to Matt. That's why this story matters. That's why we won't stop. Because the moment Diddy starts losing, we find out who else has been winning in the shadows. And trust me, some of those names are going to shock you. Imagine this: Diddy walks out of court. No cuffs, no ankle monitor, no restrictions. He steps back into his mansion in Florida, the same place where some of the alleged crimes happened. And just like that, he's back. Now ask yourself, what happens next? Because when a man with that much power feels humiliated, cornered, and exposed, he doesn't forget. He retaliates. And who's at the top of his list? Cassie, Lil Rod, Jane, Gene Deal, former staff. Anyone who spoke. These people didn't just accuse him, they humiliated him publicly. They broke the silence. They gave the public something Diddy never wanted, receipts. And now, they're targets. Not necessarily in the obvious way, not with guns or threats in the street, but with lawsuits, with private investigators, with smear campaigns, with canceled deals, with whispers in industry circles. That's how real power punishes, because if Diddy walks, he walks with a score to settle, and the system won't stop him. Because if he beat the case, technically, he's innocent in the eyes of the law. So when those people start losing jobs, start disappearing from media, start going quiet again, it won't look like revenge. But it will be revenge, and people in the industry already feel it coming. In a recent bombshell interview with Piers Morgan, Uncensored, celebrity bodyguard, big homie CC, who once worked around Diddy's circle, said something chilling. If Diddy walks, I'm target number one. He didn't stop there. He went on to say that he's leaving America for his safety, because staying would be asking to disappear. That's not drama, that's fear. Real fear, from someone who knows how this world works behind the curtains. Now, just to be clear, everything we're talking about is based on publicly available information. Media coverage, court records, interviews, and testimonies from people who claim to know the inside story. These are allegations, rumors, and statements made by individuals who, at least on the surface, seem credible. Our job is to investigate, connect the dots, and bring these pieces to you so you can decide for yourself what's real. Because whether you believe every word or not, one thing's clear. Gene Deal warned us. He said, "You don't embarrass Puff and expect it to be over." He's the type to remind you every time that you crossed him. And if Diddy walks, what message does that send? That if you're rich enough, connected enough, and protected enough, you can outlast the truth. You can bury the witnesses. You can walk away and make sure the people who spoke up don't. But we're not done yet. Because there's one more question we have to ask. If this man walks free, who's next? If Diddy walks free, who's next? Because we all know, in his world, silence is loyalty. Speaking is betrayal. And betrayal gets punished. So if you think he'll just move on, forget, and go back to music and tequila ads, think again. This isn't about fame anymore. It's about legacy, control, vengeance. And let's be honest, there's already a pattern. The people closest to Diddy who turned on him even slightly ended up isolated, discredited, or suddenly silent. Former assistants who spoke out lost everything. Producers who hinted at the parties disappeared from the scene. Bodyguards like Gene Deal, called crazy and bitter for warning the world. And now, you've got people like Lil Rod and Jane, who testified under oath. They didn't just say he hurt me, they said he used others to hurt many. They pulled the curtain. And let's not forget, if Diddy is protected, then the people protecting him are watching too. Politicians, executives, agencies. That means every person who testified isn't just a problem for Diddy. They're a threat to the network, to the silence, to the control. And that puts a giant target on their backs. So who's next? Is it Cassie, who shattered the illusion with a bombshell lawsuit and a decade of secrets? Is it Lil Rod, who exposed the mechanics of the freak-offs and gave names? Or is it someone we haven't even heard from yet? Someone still in hiding, scared to come forward? Because if Diddy walks, the message is loud and clear. Talk, and you'll pay. And that's exactly why this can't be the end of the story. It might be the end of the trial. But for the people who spoke out, it's just the beginning.